what would be the first change you would implement in this entire world?
Because if we don't have chaos, we're not exploring. Like, we're just saying, okay, we're in this little sphere, this box or this globe, and we can play around with what's in there, but what about what's out there? What about what's over there?
Right. So what that basically means is that you don't attach yourself to the fruits of success or the fears of failure, but do what you're ought to do. Based off of your jobs, your mindset, your learnings, entrepreneurship, what's been the greatest and most valuable lesson you've learned so far until this present moment?
Oh my gosh.
Well, welcome everybody to A Little Perspective. My name is Pranav, and today we have a very special guest for you guys, Monica Kreuger. How are you doing today, Monica?
I'm doing great. How about you?
So far, so good. Really excited to be out here in Craig. And for those of you guys that don't know, this isn't our usual studio. We're out here at Monica's acreage. So really thank you for allowing me to be here. And Monica, why don't we get the ball rolling by you just giving a brief introduction about yourself?
Sure. I don't know where to start. I've been on this planet for a while, so I think I'll start with just saying that first of all, I'm a mom and a grandma. Very happy to be a grandma of 8 grandchildren, and we have 4 children. And as we were speaking a little bit earlier, all of our kids are either in their own businesses or working for each other. So it's an entrepreneurial family, and we come from entrepreneurial roots. So I guess our passion is really to try and make a difference through running a business and help others to do the same. So I want to talk about the fact that I really feel called to do the work that we're doing and have felt the call for a long time. We're in a different stage right now, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but I spent 10 years working in the federal government, and obviously I met your aunt during that period of time. And after deciding that that wasn't necessarily the place I needed to continue my career, I left. I actually quit. And we can talk about that experience, if you like, a little bit later as well, and started Global Infobrokers. And Global Infobrokers has been around now since 1990. And partway through the last 40-ish year, or 35-ish years, we started a school called the Praxis School of Entrepreneurship. So we were doing the work in the area of helping people start businesses, but at one point we decided we needed to name it. So Global Infobrokers is our company, but Praxis School of Entrepreneurship is where we do all of our entrepreneurship training and development and coaching.
Is there a specific meaning behind that name? Or
Yes, there is actually. When my husband joined the company, praxis is actually a Greek word where reality meets theory. And that's really the philosophy behind how we do our training. So in our entrepreneurship training as well, everyone who provides training and coaching and development work, they're all entrepreneurs. So we have nobody that works with us and with the entrepreneurs in training that hasn't been there, done that, or is currently doing that. So we talked earlier as well about the importance of experience. Right. And I also did teach in the university for 7 years in entrepreneurship. I taught their entrepreneurship class at the university. And the whole class was designed to be from an experiential base. And the students loved it. They felt it was almost like a capstone. Even if they weren't necessarily going into a business, although a number of them did, it felt like everybody they talked to, learned from, were people that would be the people they talked to and learn from in real life. So I think that belief in experiential learning, that's been with us from the beginning. And that's made its way through all that we do, basically. Even in our consulting work, we really work from a place of knowing and a place of being. Yeah.
So, in like our previous episodes, we actually got to learn about this specific term that this one of our guests actually gave it. His name's Ben Tingley from Bravo Tango. And he called it like the entrepreneurial itch. Like he always knew that he'd be like an entrepreneur. Like he started off as like a person who did a 9-to-5, just a typical Monday to Friday. But somewhere in his heart and his mind, he always knew he'll be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Is that the case for you as well? Because you mentioned you left, you quit the federal government.
I feel that it was always there.
Okay.
I was always, as a kid, even selling stuff. I liked to sell things. And when I was 11, I was selling weekly newspaper subscriptions door to door.
How did that happen?
I'm not really, I don't even know if I can remember. I'm sure the opportunity just came up and I wanted to earn some money.
Okay.
And I was very independent as a kid. And I started doing the selling of the subscriptions, and I was the highest seller in our area. And I was so excited. I think I got $1 per subscription I sold or something like that. And I loved it. That was an early, hint, I think, that I really enjoyed doing something on my own.
Right.
And very quickly that turned into lots of things. I did lots of handcraft things, made macrames and jewelry, and I sewed, and I sold all of it. I had a contract with Jeux Canada Games and hired my mom to do all the selling, all the sewing of the, like the ambassadors, all their outfits. There was 7 of them they had to have.
Right.
And so lots of opportunity came up, and every time I could do that, I jumped at it. Even if I didn't know if I could do it, I just said, I'm going to do it. So I did that. And then when I was 18, I fell into Egyptian dance. One of the first women who came from Egypt was teaching dance in Saskatoon. And I took her class. And I just fell in love with everything to do with Egypt. Determined that was probably a previous life for me. And after she retired in about 4 years, a friend of mine who also started taking it, and I took over the dance school. And we just, a year ago, passed that on to the next generation ourselves. So I think just always this independence, the belief that you can make your future happen, like you can be intentional about where you're going, as opposed to just letting life happen to you. I think that's always been part of me. So even though I think my path was to go, I did go to university and all of those things, and that was sort of an expectation of the boomers at the time. The
Right.
parents expected you to do that. I was, school was easy for me. I could do all that, but it wasn't, the entrepreneurial itch was, I think, there. And I did continue to do sideline things to make money, but I did get a job first at the university, and then when my husband decided to take Ryerson classes at Ryerson, we moved out there, and I got a job with Statistics Canada. And I absolutely loved it because I love numbers, and I was working with helping people use numbers, and mostly helping business people use numbers, which started to lead us down the path to what my company eventually became.
Right.
I had a fantastic leader there who just helped me grow. It was incredible. Anything I wanted to do, he sent me for training, or what do you want to do next? And, in 4 years, I went from, I probably tripled my income. Like he just promoted me because I just had such an eager desire to learn.
Right.
And then when we came back to Saskatoon, I moved to a different department. We talked about all its different names, but it was essentially Industry Canada. And it was a very different environment. I had started taking my MBA, and it was an environment that was fairly male dominated, and then there was me. So it was a different kind of experience. Leadership was different.
How did you stand out when you mentioned that it was a male dominant environment?
I'm a very open, collaborative person. So I'm always sharing. I'm always interested in finding out what can we do next. And what I really felt at Industry Canada was there was so much information there. So taking the tact that, again, business people need to have access to information. And it's before everything was on the internet and you could, So I just wanted to create a space where people could come and access the information, have somebody to help them with it, because there was a lot of information there that wasn't in the libraries. So I designed an idea to do a storefront with the data that was in Industry Canada there. And I got some support to do a pilot project and got some great support out of the Manitoba office as well. We did a pilot project and it worked out really well. There's the entrepreneur, right?
There we go.
In me. I was doing these things that hadn't been done before. And when it was ready, I said, okay, let's where's the support? Let's get this thing rolling because it's proven itself. And at the time, the leader at the time was an older school leader, and it would be hard for this to happen in today's day and age. But he told me, sort of at a party for the department at the time, he told me that he didn't believe that I should be actually working because I had 4 children and I should be home. So everything I did to try and move the project forward was stopped. There was a barrier put in place. And I tried a variety of different avenues because that's what you do, and none of it worked. So I chose to quit. And, did it in a good way, because I think no matter what you do, you need to leave in a good way. No matter your experience, you need to leave in a good way.
Don't burn bridges.
Right. And you feel better yourself if you leave in a good way. And so then I thought, well, I'll just take this idea and we'll do it ourselves. We'll try to create a space where people can, at the time, there was something called information brokerage that was really, really popular in the US. And I thought, okay, let's do that. I can do research for people. I'll help business people access what they need to make a good business decision. So hence the name, Global Info Brokers. Right. But I really didn't understand about doing market research, and I hadn't done any. And in Saskatchewan, people weren't prepared to pay for that. So I went, okay, now what am I going to do? We've got this business, we've got this space. And you learn from your mistakes. So I should have done market research. And we ended up doing business plans for people. Again, I had never done one. I'd done something through my MBA, but nothing really practical. So I think I did a total of 6 business plans for people. And I think out of those, 2 of them paid. I didn't understand that you should get some money up front. And if they didn't get their funding, they didn't want to pay for the plan. So, okay, this isn't going to work for me either. This is not what I'm called to do. I don't like doing things for people. And then at that time, somebody approached me who I'd never met before. And they said, look, the federal government has come to us and said that they're interested in doing some work around coming up with entrepreneurship training, self-employment training, because at that time, unemployment was double-digit, interest rates were double-digit, inflation was double-digit. So that was at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. And so the federal government, Human Resources, I think it was called at the time, wanted to do a pilot. And this person said, they approached me, I can do, 15% of it. I need somebody else to do the rest. Well, again, I haven't ever done this before. But there's got to be material out there. I'm great at research. So we pulled together a 16-week program. And we ran the first program. And it was a program where people on unemployment could take our program. And we ran it. We had 16 weeks. It was all the material we put together, we kind of got through in 4 weeks. So I was up at 3:00 every morning preparing material for the next day. It was just, again, really good learning, really good training. So at the end of our 16 weeks, we had good material, but we didn't have great success. We had 1 out of the 16 that started their business. And so we said, okay, if you guys are willing to give us another shot, we're going to examine what
Went
what
wrong.
went,
Yeah.
what would need to improve, right?
Right.
And what we realized at the time is that we didn't have a proper assessment process. So we didn't bring people into the program that were ready to do the journey of entrepreneurship, ready to learn, but not ready to actually implement. So we went through and developed an assessment protocol. And then the second program that we did was wonderful. Yeah. Like we had incredible success. And the 16 weeks we realized as well was too short. So we went to, I think it was 52 weeks, which we determined after that was too long. We ended up at a 38 week. So it was wonderful to be allowed the ability to innovate and experiment, which is the norm today. In anything you do, you iterate as you go. But that wasn't how things were done 35 years ago. So we were very fortunate to have really good people and the government that were willing to get behind us and let us do a little bit of experimenting. And then we ran that program up until December this year. And provincial government this year, the responsibility devolved to the province in the year 2000. Mm-hmm. And the federal government would move money to the provincial government to fund the program. And so we were very fortunate to have the opportunity to do the funded program for 35 years. Right. But then in December of this year, the provincial government kind of closed anything to do with entrepreneurship, including those programs. And the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program entrepreneurship stream. So a lot of those things got shuttered. So what we knew that was coming. So we took a turn. And during COVID, we put all of our material and delivered everything online. So we were already ready to make a shift. And so now we work with people online individually, and we're developing like a subscription model. That's our next iteration. Sweet. So that'll happen sometime this summer. And we've added, coaching and a bunch of other things as well. So, so I think, it was time, for us to do a shift. Mm-hmm. And we felt that it was time. We felt that was the direction we were needing to go next.
So you mentioned that you've been helping so many people mm-hmm. with entrepreneurship. Like a crazy amount of people have learned from you, have implemented, your teachings. What I want to know is what's something that you can't teach to a person and it's something that they have to learn themselves?
I would say they need to be ready, and they need to know they're ready. So they need to be ready to step in 2 feet and move forward. What happens is if fear overtakes, right, and then they can't take those next steps, it's great learning, but you kind of have to refresh it if you're going to be ready to start next. So I'd say that internal desire and motivation and belief in yourself, which is a huge challenge today because there's so many people that don't understand that they have, just by being human, they have the capacity, and they already do, create their own futures. But they can do it with much more intentionality. We make 1 million decisions every day. I've read a statistic somewhere that there's like 1,000 decisions you make every day.
Right.
Little ones, like I'm going to sit down here, I'm going to have a glass of water. All of these are decisions you make that create the next piece of your life. But we have the ability to make the big decisions too. And I am going to be in business. I am going to do X, Y, Z. There are going to be problems. There are going to be barriers. But I know there are ways to work through those things. Those are deep foundational things that we need to grab onto in ourselves. But so many people have been, taught that they can't, that somebody else, some external force is the thing that's going to take them to the next. You're not good enough. You don't have enough skill. Now's not the right time.
Why do
you
think
don't
that's the
have
case,
enough
though?
money. Well, one of the reasons I'm going to say is I don't feel that our education system has prepared people to find the greatness within themselves. I think what it's done is tried to make us all fit a mold. We all have to learn the same thing. We all have to be in the same classroom at the same time. We all have to write the exam at the same time. There's things called standardization. Well, standardization isn't welcoming the beautiful uniqueness of you out, right? We were talking earlier about people who learn differently. We don't support that in a standardized school system. There are many ways to do learning. And some of the earliest ways of doing learning before schools even existed was to learn by doing. You learned from your parent or the elder in your community. You learned by watching. You learned by playing. You play, you bruise yourself, you fall off something. Oh, okay, well, that's what happens if I don't watch doing this, that, or the next thing. Right. We have everything so programmed now and so safe. Not that we shouldn't be looking at safety. Absolutely, we should. But, people have to, understanding that failure is part of life. Failure has to happen for us to learn. You have to fall down to know that you have to, miss that rock there or walk over there or walk differently, or you have to make mistakes. And we're not rewarded for making mistakes. We're punished for making mistakes. You got a lower mark. Well, you have to work harder to get a better mark. Well, what do marks have to do with anything? As soon as you leave university, nobody cares. Nobody cares about your marks. Zero. So why are we worried about that? Why are we not looking at ways to make learning really interesting? Like in Saskatchewan, they have the outdoor school, which is a supplement to school and learning. We have we participate in a program called One School, One Farm. Kids come out here. They're going to be coming out here in end of May, and they're going to be planting trees, and they're going to be learning about the outdoors. And this is all of this is what kids should be learning about. And learning that they can make a difference. I plant a tree, it's going to grow, it's going to make fruit happen and feed somebody. Where do we do that in school? It hasn't changed since I was in school. Right. There's little bits of things that are different. And obviously technology came into the room. But where is the innovation around learning? Where kids can, instead of going, when we were trying to set up a school here, we had to say the kids could only learn from 8 something in the morning to 3 something in the afternoon. What? I don't get that. Kids learn all the time. Why not have an environment where kids are able to learn whatever they want to and however much they want to? So I think that, we've been taught to be part of a standard, and even in workplaces, you have to do X, Y, Z. You come in at this time, you have lunch at this time, you have coffee at this time. Lots of places are more flexible, and since COVID, lots of people have been able to work at home. Sure. But as long as you get your work done, what's the difference? And what about working together to help the company grow in unique ways, not just leaving it to the top few or the ELT, the executive leadership team, or whatever? Why not open it up so people can really, really contribute? So I think we have to go back to the drawing board. Kids are naturally creative. Kids are naturally curious. Kids will go everywhere and learn everything. And nobody's saying to them, well, I guess if you fall and hurt yourself, they might say, don't go up that scaffolding again like our granddaughter did. But they're allowed to explore. That's what we need to have. We need to have that belief in ourselves and our capacity to try and do and be as much as we can possibly be for as long as we can possibly be. The concept that at some point you're no longer useful is really
bizarre.
It's those times of, when you're more senior, just as we are, that you've got lots to share and still lots to learn. So much to learn. There's an unending amount to learn. So we need to be building an environment where people are constantly curious and constantly questioning and constantly learning and coming up with new ways of seeing and new ways of doing and not being boxed in. So I think that's, when people are hurt and there isn't someone there to help them work through that and see how they could use that to their advantage and grow from that, it's really difficult for people. We don't have a great set of wraparound services for people to get through struggles. So, yeah, I really feel we're losing so much human capacity by keeping people down instead of lifted.
So if you were given the power, to change whatever's around you, like you mentioned all these different things, there might be other things too. What would be the first change you would implement in this entire world?
I would bring people together to talk about what changes should be made.
And when you say people together,
Communities.
what does that entail? Communities
from all different, I think communities need to see that they have the possibility to change. So bringing communities together to talk about what would make our community better, what would make our lives better, how do we make a better life for our children? So start having conversations. I don't want to call them town halls, but right. Because that's really, right. But bringing groups of people together to have a conversation about what this could look like. It's amazing what happens when you get people in a room and they know that they have no barriers to thought. There's nothing saying, well, you can't do that.
Don't you think that would bring chaos too? Because if you...
Sure.
Right.
I welcome it.
Then how do you channel that energy? Because sometimes it can get out of hand too, right?
Sure, but you have facilitation, right? So out of chaos can come beautiful new ideas. And I did a talk once, probably about 5 years ago, around the importance of chaos.
Oh, you did?
Because if we don't have chaos, we're not exploring. We're just saying, okay, we're in this little sphere, this box or this globe, and we can play around with what's in there. But what about what's out there? What about what's over there?
Right.
Let's start pulling all that stuff together. But if you have at the beginning of the conversation, well, where do we want to go? Where's the sort of end game here? And then you work towards that end game. It's amazing. It's amazing what can happen. I've been in a lot of different groups where what comes out of that is a new structure, right? And something that's, we need to be looking at structures today that are much more fluid. We've got really entrenched institutions. And I think we need, you do need institutions in some way, but I don't think we need institutions that last forever. They have to move and morph and change so that they can be prepared for the next generations. And we're not right now. We're not prepared. And going through school. So, the next thing I would probably change would be the school system. I think it needs to be completely redone. I don't think it's a fixable thing. I think it needs to be reimagined. And that would take a lot of bravery and courage on the part of our communities because it's scary. It's scary to do something completely new. So, but I think that's the only way. We'd have to try something new. Or, and you can try little experiments. Experiments are wonderful. I love experiments.
Right.
You play around with something new, and really life should be all about experiments. Let's try it this way. Let's try it that way. It's okay. We're welcoming failure because that's what an experiment is all about. You're testing out a theory. Well, that didn't work. Well, we learned that maybe this might work. So you keep iterating. You keep trying the next thing. And we should never be afraid of that. We should be welcoming that. I think we're all afraid of that. I think we're afraid of trying new stuff. Because what if it doesn't work out? Well, let's figure out what that looks like if it doesn't work out. The planet isn't going to die. People aren't going to fall over the edge of the world. We're just going to try something new. So I think we just have to have a whole different mindset. And we have to care for each other. I don't think we do that well right now.
And one thing that really surprises me is that when people have already concluded that they're going to fail and that they don't even try.
Yeah.
Because I feel
that's a good point.
Me personally, so I read this, so it's basically a Hindu religious book. So the Bible, the Quran.
Yep.
So it's the Bhagavad Gita.
Yep.
And one of the concepts that I really find fascinating is that it's called karma yoga. So what that basically means is that you don't attach yourself to the fruits of success or the fears of failure, but do what you're ought to do.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Do what you're called to do. Don't worry about the other. Yeah, and that's a good point. As I think people, again, in school systems, in work, everything is around success.
Results, yeah.
And right, we're working now in what we call, this is what's going to come out this summer. We've designed a new way of looking at business that we call 4D, fourth dimension entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Yeah. And the fourth dimension is, and if you've ever seen there's a fourth dimension image, and we're using that as our new logo. The fourth dimension is about learning about how everything is connected. So, and looking at things from the point of view of impact. And the fact that you make a decision, like we make a million decisions every day, and many other things are affected because of those decisions. But being able to see ourselves in the whole, right? So looking at, when I make a decision, who could it possibly impact? As far out as you can imagine it, who can it possibly impact? So every time you think about a decision, you're thinking about the impact on those outside of you. Mm-hmm. And so you're not, and one of those things might be, am I going to have enough money at the end of the day? But it's not profit first. It's not shareholders' profit first. It's how do I impact the world around me in a positive way? And if the decision I make, how is it positively impacting everyone around us? So when I was taking my MBA, I started playing with this then. Mm-hmm. The typical way that you measure a business's success is profit. And we've had a lot of things, a little change over time. People are saying, well, now we're measuring other things. You know, we measure impact on social community, you know, how much volunteering are we doing, different things like that. But that's still not, it still means that profit thing is still number one. And I started saying, okay, well, what other things could we measure? Like when we do look at the word profit, what does profit mean? And it means kind of like something, you've got something more than what you had before. So if we use that and I say, okay, for the people that work with us, how much more are we giving them than they're giving us? So when they leave our employ, what extra value have they left us with? What extra value have customers left us with? What extra value have suppliers left us with? Like from us, what have we given to them extra? So if we think about profit externally as opposed to just money, then that started working into, well, what about impact? Like how do we impact our community in a good way? And I really feel that the future of our world will be primarily saved by small businesses doing good work, not just thinking about profit. Large companies think about profit. It's still the old model of shareholders, and we've got to give shareholders return and blah, blah, blah.
I don't think that would change.
You know, but small businesses
Right.
can still live and make a living, but they can also, and they are, a lot of them are without even thinking about it. Right. They impact their community in good ways. You know, they're the ones that sponsor a ball team. They're the ones who hire summer students. They're the ones who put something into the local Crake Lions group, and they can pay for something for kids to do in the local library. Like these things happen all the time. But if we're conscious about it as small business owners, and we're saying, what can we intentionally do to better the world? It's a different ballgame. And so the whole concept of 4D is to help people to start to envision, where can I make a difference? Not in the traditional way that I've been doing it, but what in a bigger way can I make a difference? And then you start putting small business together in a different way. You know, we all belong to chambers. I'm a big fan of the chamber, and you know, those are all places we can be members of. But this is much deeper. This is that how do we come together to help the world in a bigger way? And that's a different kind of connection. So that's where we see our next calling, is helping people who are ready. Same thing as with entrepreneurs, who are ready to do that, and not everybody will be, but who's ready to step into that next level of doing as a business and starting to make a difference in a bigger way by collaborating together.
So you as a person, or like your entire company who has been helping so many people, how do you make one ready? What are the necessary steps that you can take with so much experience, so much knowledge, with people who are like, hey, I'm iffy about it?
Yeah.
But how do you turn that iffy into concrete, absolute?
Yeah. There would be some typical things to do. One would be to talk to people who are in business and in the type of business that you're in, and ask them about their experience. Like, people are usually really happy to share. I didn't do that, so I made a whole whack of mistakes to begin with in our business. But once I knew I needed to talk to people, I did. And people are really quite willing to share. And today, there are also many, many resources to go to learn about the different things you need to get started, so that you're not surprised, right? So you can do some research. You can learn how to do a proper market survey. You can learn how to put together a business plan if you need to have funding. You can learn how to create visioning and values. You can learn how to work with others that might be, potentially a partner, or somebody who might work under you as an employee or alongside of you. There's so many places today that you can go and get some research done. It didn't exist when I started. Like, there was nobody talking to you about how to start a business. There was no place to go to learn how to start a business, except to read a book in a library. Right. So talk to people, like people who've been there, done that. And I would visit places, like if it's a physical place that you might want to go and look at different, if you're going to do a retail store, go and look at a bunch of them and see, how are they set up? Mm-hmm. But you're going to learn the most by talking to people who've been there, done that. I would even talk to people who started and failed. Like, why did you fail? Like, what happened? What would you tell me about that could help me? The second thing I would do would be to look at your current support system. If you've got a lot of people in your group or your network that are really saying you shouldn't do this, then I would start looking for some new network to connect to. And we've often said, and we worked with 1,200 startups. A number of them told us that their original groups or their original networks kind of disappeared as they started their own business. And that was because there was not a lot to connect on anymore. They weren't working in for an employer. They needed different things in their network, and so they ended up developing other networks. And there's lots of places to do that now too. There's lots of places you can connect to entrepreneurs. So I would do that. I would connect to other people who are as excited about this stuff as you are. And we worked in the last few years, we worked with a number of people who had mental health issues or learning issues. And a lot of times those other mechanisms aren't as effective. If, for example, say somebody has a high level of anxiety, they might find it difficult to become part of a network of entrepreneurs. But today, you can get that online too. So you can find a network that's online that you can check in and check out as your level of health allows. But it is running your own business, if you have any kind of what the world calls a disability. I don't necessarily call it that, but a challenge in living in a mainstream society. It can be a beautiful way to build a living for yourself, because you can construct it to suit who you are and what your needs are and when you can work and who you can work with. And all of that is under your own control, which is great. So you can build it up and out as you see fit. Yeah.
And I love your mindset about how you have such a positive outlook. You're so optimistic, and always think about moving forward. But I'll keep it real that fear is a very human emotion.
Absolutely.
Right. So how do you deal with it? Because I'm sure that you also are scared sometimes.
Oh, yes.
Right. So why don't we talk about that? Like, what gets you scared, or how do you deal with that?
Well, and I have a couple of times that fear was huge. It actually immobilized me when we were planning to actually build out here. I still remember to this day, I was at the Y and I was doing my workout, and we were talking about how are we going to make this place happen, because we had no money. And we found a place, in the country. We thought this is a beautiful place to build the school that we were thinking of doing. And thinking, how are we we have no money. We have 4 kids at home. We've got, we've got the mortgage. We've got I don't know how this is going to work. But we found this land. And when we bought this land, it was a project to build an eco-village. So the land was $1, I think, for this space. We now have several more acres, but so that wasn't the issue. It was we want to build. How are we going to make this work? I think we can make a mortgage work, but a construction mortgage is different, and you have to have so much down, and we don't have that. And I just got myself into I was on the treadmill, and I was just into a cycle, and I just talked myself into a place that I had to physically get off of the treadmill, and I couldn't move. I just stood, and I'm sure everybody else who saw me just standing there was like this person isn't stretching or anything. They're just frozen. Yeah. And my mind just kept spinning and spinning and spinning. And then I just stopped, and I don't even know how I stopped, but I thought, okay, if this doesn't work, you have all kinds of capability. You're not afraid to go and work anywhere to get to the next thing. If you have to do something and earn some money to put food on the table, you can do that. There's never shame in work of any sort, even though I want to do my own thing. There's no shame in work. And I just thought forward, and this is what I do anytime I hit fear today, is I think forward. Okay, well, if this doesn't work, what happens? What's the worst case scenario? Okay, I get a job. Okay, we can always downsize. We can, there was always another answer. There was always something that would get us out the other end. And when we make fear so big that we can't see the other side of it, and we can't see what comes out the other side of it, there's very few things that will ever put us in a situation where we're going to die. That's the worst case scenario, right? So we're not in that space. And it just all of a sudden I started breathing, and I went, okay, all right, this is going to work. This is fine. If this fails, it's fine. We're going to be fine. None of us are going to die. We're good. And I just brought myself back, right? And I just felt much calmer, got back on the treadmill, finished my workout. And, it was within probably a week and a half that one of our alumni, I went to just have coffee. I often go and chat with him. He was very successful in his business. And I was just telling him what we were planning to do. And he said, well, how much do you need? I said, oh, I'm sorry. And he said, well, what do you need? I said, well, we're going to need $50,000 to get started on the construction mortgage. He says, I'll lend it to you. No strings attached. Let me know whenever. And I went, okay. The universe just opened. I just decided, and he lent us the money, and we paid it back. I think probably 10 years later, it was all paid back. But without that, it would have been a real struggle to make this happen. But that's the other thing. You never know what's on the other side. You never know what door is going to open if you get past that.
And that happens.
That fear.
When you look past that.
It does. Because you now all of a sudden you're going, okay, it's possible. Yeah. I don't know yet how, but it's possible. And it was, and it happened. It was great. That's happened more than once in our lives for sure.
So do you think that it's the whole idea that people just can't let go of what they have right now? They just get really stubborn, that they can't look past that fear? Like, say, for example, that you have an amazing house right now. You know, I want to say, like, let's just say that you have good materialistic things going on for you.
Right.
And when the whole idea of, like, oh, downsizing, selling something off, or I have to, like, work a low-paying job, you think it's the whole idea of letting things go just so I could grow maybe later on, like it'll take 5 years, 6 years, that people don't want to take that risk. They get really stubborn. They're like, I just don't want to let go of what I have. It's too good for me to let go of.
Yeah, I think it's probably people haven't been don't know the value of being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Right? And it's in that place of uncomfort that really gets you to stretch.
Right.
Because if it's easy to go through life and just continue on with what has been working. Mm-hmm. And I think we think in our minds that this is a great place and, I really like it and, I'm comfortable here. And we think nothing's going to change, really, but you're changing all the time. This is the thing. We are constantly changing. We are evolving even if we aren't thinking we're evolving. You're not the same person, I'm sure, as you were when you were 15, 18,
no.
right?
No.
I'm not the same person I was when I was 20 or 25 or 40. I'm not the same person. But I also know that by putting myself in places of discomfort, that I'm going to grow quicker than if I don't. So if you don't put yourself in a place where you're uncomfortable, right, have never done this one thing before, or, not sure how this thing is going to work out, you don't get yourself to the next level. And I think our ability on this planet is to keep getting to the next best version of ourselves. Right. If we stay, we'll continue to evolve, but it's kind of like you'll get this far. If you get through all kinds of uncomfortableness, you're going to be getting this far. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about that in terms of a success matrix. I'm talking about that more from what else can you give to the world? You have more and more capacity to give the more you evolve.
And how you grow as a person too.
Yes.
Yeah, I read this quote, or not, I didn't read it. I heard it on a podcast. So Joe Rogan had David Goggins on for the first time. And he said that true hell is when the person you are meets the person you could have been. And that really struck with me. And like, I love what you say too, because that really ties in what David Goggins says in that podcast as well, is that especially in this day and age today, we have everything that we need to succeed. Like you mentioned too, back then you had to use books. You didn't have people to talk to. You had to fail in order to get better. Sure, you still have to fail now. I think failure is important, but you don't have to fail that often. You don't have to fail that much. You can choose your failure strategically too. By talking to people, or by when you know that's probably not the right thing for me to do. You just don't do it. You don't have to experiment that way. But I feel like now there's so much opportunity around us. But again,
there is. There's
fear
huge.
just holds us back.
There is huge opportunity. And I do feel that we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And so if you've been coasting for too long, I'll say that we've done the same kind of program for a number of years. We've iterated it many times. It looks very different today than it used to. But we delivered it in the similar ways. And when we had to change it up, like that was great. It was very uncomfortable trying to figure out how to do it. And we're now in another stage of being uncomfortable. And that stage can be very different depending on where you're at in life too. Where our kids are growing up, we have grandkids, we're not in the same place that we were when we started the business. So now we can imagine in a different way, where haven't told you, and I'll show you before you leave, we have a Wallapini that we're building. It's just an idea. My husband has all these ideas.
Sorry, what is that?
It's called a wallopini, and it's an underground greenhouse.
Oh, sweet.
And we're experimenting. We're doing a demonstration project. We're learning as we're going. We're making all kinds of mistakes with it, but we're building it with used tires, hence the big pile of tires out there. And we're creating it. It'll be about 3,000 square feet.
Whoa.
So it would be able to feed 30-ish people for a year. And then you can grow the whole 24/7. And it goes down 10 feet, so below the frost line. And we want to run it as an experiment and then learn from it. And then we want to teach others how to do it so we can look at food security. Well, I would never have thought that would be something we would be doing. But once your mind is open to do all kinds of stuff, why not? Why couldn't we do it? We're not, horticulturists, but we know people.
And like you said, the worst that could happen is it fails.
Yeah. So what? Then we have a bunch of, we've got a great big underground space, and we'll have a big, lovely roof, and that'll be an outdoor something. I don't know. Right? And so we're constantly thinking of new things that we can do, because that doesn't have to necessarily make us money. That's just a gift to the world. So we'll teach people, we'll, maybe put some kits together at some point. I don't know, maybe not. We'll see. There's nothing in stone. We'll decide those things as we're going. We'll make decisions that will make a future out of that, or we just may have something that works. But I think given our experience with food security, this could be great for communities to have. They could be run as a cooperative. It could be run as a youth entrepreneurship project. It could be run as a community-run project. It could be somebody running it on their own. It could be anything. And if people want to then grow what they want, you could grow coffee beans. You could do lots of things in there that you can't, do right now. Well, that's how we live and think now. That's just how we are. We don't go, well, we couldn't really do that.
Yeah.
We're thinking of putting things into our forest now and putting little places for people to come and stay, like a glamping or something.
Right.
Because we've got beautiful forest out here. And always we're thinking of what's the next thing we can offer to the world. Right. And so it's a different way of thinking as a business. It's not just about serving customers, right? But it's how do we, by virtue of working with the people we work with, how do we also serve in a bigger way?
I want to ask you, before we move into this other question that I have, based off of your jobs, your mindset, your learnings, entrepreneurship, what's been the greatest and most valuable lesson you've learned so far until this present moment?
Oh my gosh. That's a really big question. I think the biggest thing I've learned is that, and I think it's part of what we use as our foundation in our business, is that you can create your own future. And I've seen it. I've just seen it. I've seen it magically happen. It's not magic, I guess, but it's by virtue of humans making the choice to create that they can, and they do amazing things. And I can certainly say that when I started in the business, I didn't think that way. I couldn't see that. I think I maybe unconsciously or subconsciously knew it, but I couldn't see it. And by us starting, me working in the government and then quitting, which was extremely scary for everybody in our family, thought we were crazy because I was making really good money. But to do that was a huge risk. Well, that was probably our biggest first risk. And we were fine. We survived. I have to say, we lived really poor for a long time, but our kids grew up knowing themselves that you could live through that, right? You can live through that. They all had to learn that being entrepreneurs anyways. So I really think it's around the potential to create your own future. Right. Yeah. And be prepared to live with it. Right. And yeah.
And I feel like once you like you mentioned, been through those uncomfortable situations, it just fortifies your mind,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like your kids, maybe the generation after too.
Yeah.
Well, knock on wood, I hope everything goes smooth.
Yeah.
But even if there are uncomfortable situations,
Yeah.
just have this faith that it all works out in the end.
Yeah.
And I feel like this would lean perfectly into me asking, based on everything that we've talked about so far, is what's your why in life? Why do you do what you do?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier that I feel called, and I do feel, I don't think I would have called it a calling back in the day.
Okay.
I think I just kind of trusted the process.
Right.
Right? This is something we can do, and I'm going to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe now that all of those decisions that were made were decisions that led us in this direction to when I could actually call it a calling.
Right.
And both my husband and I feel called in from a different perspectives. So he's come at it. He grew up being told he was stupid, being told he was lazy. He was dyslexic.
Right.
He couldn't properly write. Everything stays in his brain. He doesn't need to write. But he never thought he would ever go to university. When we got married, I said, well, let's give it a shot. We can both be there. He really struggled with fitting a box. And so when he looked at actually doing a university degree that he could do, that's how he ended up in Ryerson, because that was film photography. He had that. But what we discovered was that I could be his translator. So he could speak and tell me his ideas. I could write them down in whatever the system wanted to see.
That's beautiful.
And then eventually, when computers came to be, he writes better than I do. Like he would write, for example, this is an example. He wrote a paper. Did you ever see the sitcom Cheers?
No.
Do you know the sitcom Cheers?
No.
Watch it someday.
Okay.
Very popular in our age. He wrote a Cheers dialogue. So he wrote that as a paper. So he took his whole paper and wrote it in a Cheers dialogue. So mimicking the Cheers, had the characters and everything in there. He had an instructor who loved that approach and gave him, like, I was probably close to 100.
Right.
And that was where he started to see that he actually had value, was great, was smart, had all of the things that were needed to be successful in his life. Was when people started to show him that it wasn't the standardized stuff that mattered. It was how he showed up in the world. And so my why very quickly became helping others find their beauty within and their capacity within, which is what we did through the whole 35 years of this work, was helping people find out who they really were under all of it through the mechanism of a business. And even if they didn't start, it didn't matter, because they learned about themselves with the methodology that we used to teach. They learned about themselves, who they were, and where they could best show up in their life compared to where they were before. So I feel that that's a gift. I have really high empathy. I can see the world from many different perspectives, having grown up with a neurodiverse family and kids and grandkids. I can see things from other places. And I think that really made me understand what my calling was, which was to show up and help others see their own calling.
Are you happy with how life is turning out so far?
Oh, I love my life. And I have loved every age along the way. This is a beautiful age too. People used to ask and don't ask anymore, well, when are you going to retire? I said, well, what would I like? The retirement fits with a job. I'm in a calling.
Right.
We will be doing and gifting till we die. I can't see us ever not. And I think our kids see that too, right? They're very similar. And in terms of their wanting to give, it may not always be. Our oldest son, he's in, as I said, he's in Texas, and his work, I don't know how long he'll do his work. He loves the work, but he feels a calling in another way. Early in probably his 20s, he became a Baha'i, and it's a faith that originated out of Iran, and his wife is Iranian Mexican, and it is a faith that's about 200 years old, and it's very much a faith that recognizes all faiths before it. And they don't have churches and things like that. They work in community and trying to build community and trying to bring people together. And they don't have to be Baha'i. He just has a calling and a gift really in bringing groups together and helping people talk among themselves. I've been in a number of his groups.
Seems like it was passed down from you.
Maybe. And it's just a privilege to sit and watch, right? So I think they all feel they have a purpose, without necessarily always knowing what it is, but knowing that they're here for a reason. Right. And as I said, I don't think I knew my purpose earlier. I think it comes with experience in years and seeing the people that you've impacted, right? So my why will likely continue, but show up in different ways. You know, if we can help people have food security, I'm happy to share with that, you know, or collaborate. I love collaborating, bringing different people together and from different places and different backgrounds. And so many beautiful things can come out of a conversation when you're all from different places, you know? So yeah, I can't imagine not having an engaged life till I'm not here.
And I'm glad that we connected too. Remember, what's it called? I think our connection started from Steve's episode.
Oh, I love Steve. I love Steve. Steve's a great guy.
For Steve, for us?
Oh, Steve, you know, Steve really, I got to know him when I joined the Saskatchewan Chamber Board. Mm-hmm. Had connections with him before that, but I loved his humor. He has an absolute positive outlook on life as well. And with his background in tourism, and he was funny. Was funny. He is funny. He's not. He is funny. He would bring to the board meetings. I love governance work, I have to say. I love being on great boards. I love to be on great boards. But he would bring different perspectives to the table that would challenge the board to think in a different way. So it was not a board that was just like, you know, come in, check off, leave the table. You know,
Basically following the blueprint.
Yeah,
right?
he would just bring really cool stuff, and he always had interesting ideas. Yeah. You know, they weren't always approved necessarily by the board, but if I had been just the one on the board, I would have approved them all because we were just he's creative, like just a really creative guy. 100%. And he also gives back in so many ways. So I love that. I love that that he's found his way to do that. Right. So he's a very wonderful guy. Yeah. So he taught me a lot. Yeah. When I was chair, we did a lot of, you know, conversation together. He really opened my eyes to a lot of the things that were possible as well. So yeah, I give him a lot of support for being there and in the time that he was in my life.
Right. You know, before we ease into closing off the podcast, I want to ask you about leadership and mentorship. So, in the words of Monica, what's an ideal leader? What's an ideal mentor? And if you have any stories that you gained from your leaders and mentors that you want to share.
So I find I've been a mentor a lot through the Raj Manik mentorship program. He was a mentor of mine. Raj Manik was. Back right at the critical time when I was leaving government. I loved this man. He was quiet, but really had so much to say in so few words. And he really encouraged me to do what I felt was right when I talked to him before I left. He was a really amazing man. And the mentorship program that grew up under him, I joined when I felt I could be a mentor, and have been a mentor ever since. I currently don't have someone, but I have had all the way along. Right. And I learned, I think, what I considered to be a mentor at that time to be a person who's kind of in your corner, but willing to share their experience and their knowledge, be a conduit to other networks and information and places, people that you can connect with to help you do what you need to do, but really kind of support the direction that you want to take. I see that as being very different from a coach. And so when we do coaching is really about helping you move forward, challenging you, and making you accountable. Mentors don't need to make you accountable. That's your decision. But coaches need to make you accountable. So it's a different layer of conversation and work. Right. Leadership, to me, really is about being willing to step up, and I'm going to come back to what I said earlier, bring the greatness out in others. So it isn't the job, I don't think, of a leader to do. It's the job of a leader to bring out and help others lead themselves and lead each other. So I'll use an example. Right now I sit as a chair on the Luther Care Communities Board. I love that work. We have a phenomenal...
What do you love the most about it?
Oh my gosh. The board is really diverse, but they're all engaged, and they are there for the organization. They are not there for themselves. And so when we have discussions, my job really is to try and contain and, pull all that energy together to bring these beautiful pieces out of the board. But they love to be there. They want to be there. And they're fully prepared. Like, they're not coming there late and kind of looking at their phones, and they're not doing any of that. They're there to help Luther Care look to the future. And our leader, our CEO, his name is Gabe LaFond, and he will be there for 5 years this year. And he is a phenomenal leader. He's transparent. He gives, they have huddles, I think, every day. Okay. The leadership team is given all kinds of leeway to do things because they're all guided by the strategic plan. Right. And the strategic plan is right down to the front line. It isn't just a document that hangs up there. Right. They take what we do as a board, and the leadership team is at the board level, and then they take that down to the operational level, and then all the way down to the front line. And there's 550 employees. It's not like it's a small organization. Yeah. But he has managed to change the culture of that organization over the last 5 years. He came into it, we were in a really bit of a tight spot. He got us out of that tight spot over 2 years, restructured, rebuilt, and put in this beautiful culture of communication and sharing. And when I see him in a room, when he brings the leadership team to the table, for example, he'll say a few words and then he'll pass it on to the leadership person, like the member. And so they're all engaged. He brings out, joy. He brings out ideas. He brings out energy. And if there's a problem, he faces it. Right. He says, okay, what do we do with this, guys? And when he talks to the people, they have regular conversations with all the residents in the different facilities. They have, they'll call them town halls, but they get together and they all come together, and he's in the room and the leadership people are in the room. It isn't somebody else. He wants to hear what people say. So And that way, then they can solve the problem. They solve it with the people who are experiencing the problem.
Because they hear it firsthand as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So they know what they need.
Right.
And then he works with them to help them figure it out. So that to me is a beautiful example of leadership where you're engaged, you let everybody do their jobs, but you are able to help them do them in the best way possible for themselves. And I love that. Like, I think that's a great example of leadership.
100%.
Yeah.
So Monica, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you 3 rapid fire questions
Uh-oh.
before we close the podcast.
Okay.
But they'll be, they're chill. You like
Oh,
it.
okay.
So the first one, what's one piece of advice you would give to 20-year-old Monica?
Trust the process. Yeah. Don't be afraid. You have everything you need to take the next step. So don't be afraid to take the step. You don't have to worry about 17 steps ahead. Just take the next step. Don't be afraid.
And what's one piece of advice you would give to the future generation?
Yeah, probably the same thing.
Yeah.
But really,
Because like
No.
giving advice to yourself,
yeah.
you can teach yourself something.
All the
But
time.
other people, it's hard to get that message through.
Yeah. Just really know that you have everything that you need and you are constantly evolving. Let yourself evolve. In fact, be intentional about it. Make sure that you take yourself to the next level. Don't get too comfortable.
Right. Right. I like that. Yeah. And the final one, what are you most grateful for in your life right now?
I am most grateful for the fact that I met my husband. He is and was the opposite of anything anybody ever would have thought I would have partnered with. And I never actually thought I would be married necessarily. And I certainly wasn't envisioning children.
What changed?
He did. So, a fellow who kind of barely made it through grade 12, and I finished school at 16 in the top 10. I was obviously off to university, and he was working on railroad and things like that. He had a motorbike. He was a guy who would jump off bridges onto rapids on tire tubes and go hang gliding, and like he did all the scary stuff. He's a wrestling champ, like everything that had nothing to do with my life. But he was fun and he was joyful, and he always wanted a family. And at one point we decided to go down that path, and I just never thought it would be something I wanted. And when our oldest son was born, I just went, oh, for heaven's sake, how did I not think this was going to be amazing? And I just fell in love with him. And then we had 3 more. And family is just huge, huge to us. We work with our kids. We work with our grandkids. We help each other as a big unit. We didn't just okay, now they're gone and doing their thing. No, we're connected to all of our kids in a really big way. And we were connected to his parents and my mom, and my dad died early. And we lived with them. We were there with them till they died, living here or in their home. Family is just really, really important to us. But he taught me so much. I think he really taught me about the getting outside of the comfort zone. And I even tried hang gliding. It was a disaster, but he got me to see the world in such a different way. Right. And I think that's what brought out that empathy and that ability to see things in a different way and he was the living, breathing, there is so much in this man that nobody recognized. Right. And now he's a writer. His writings, he can't believe that he ever could write like he writes now. People love his writing. He's got stuff all over the place that he's published, and he's an amazing writer. But who would have seen that? Nobody would have seen that. How many people are out there that haven't been able to be recognized for the beautiful things that are inside of them, have never seen it on the outside. I don't know. So I think that, that's the thing that really made a difference in my life. Yeah, and we're still together. Not that we haven't had our troubles, right? People do, but we're married 48 years this year. So, it's great. It's great. Yeah.
No, I love that. Yeah. And I always ask this to all of our guests. And first of all, this was an amazing conversation. It was beautiful. I learned so much. I feel like we all learned so much.
Yeah, thank you.
No, of course. And before we close off the podcast, any final piece of advice for our viewers, our listeners? Just one final message that you want to get out before we shut off the cameras.
Well, first of all, I want to say kudos to you for doing this. I think this is a great thing that you're doing, is to tap into, the experience and the gifts that other people are willing to share. Today, I think it's a wonderful way to learn. And I think you're obviously learning a lot from it too, but I've learned about you too. We had a great conversation before the podcast today. So I think I want to say to everybody out here, stay engaged in your life. Don't ever, if somebody asked me the other day, well, have you ever been bored? I honestly cannot think of a time in my life I've ever been bored. That's in my entire life have I ever been bored. There's always been a book to read, or a person to talk to, or a walk to take, or a thought to run through my brain. Stay engaged in your life. It's short. Our lives are short. And if you stay engaged, you will find that there's more and more that will come out of you that you can share. And you have no idea the impact you make on people. I remember my grade 2 teacher. Still. She had such an impact on me. Her name was Mrs. Bumfrey.
That's crazy. You remember the name too.
Because she had a room packed with books. And I started school at the age of 5. And then they ran me. There was something called acceleration at the time. So I took grade 2, 3, and 4 in 2 years. And in grade 2, she had this room full of books, and she let me read anytime I wanted to. And I read that whole room of books. There was 300 and some books in there. And I read it in a year. So I could read early, and I devoured books. And I think that's that would not have been a normal thing for a teacher to do. And I think that's one of the places that I went, this person knew me, could see something in me, and said, what is it that she would really appreciate at this part of her life in education, and gave that to me. And that was such an incredible gift. I have so many books, you can't believe it. We're building shelves that are going to go. I've got another 6 shelves downstairs packed. That's crazy. So we're going to create a space here that's just nothing but books. My husband's got it all figured out. But I love books around me. I love the feel of books. I love touching them. I don't like to read online. I like to hold the book.
So you're not an
curl
audible
up.
person?
I am if I'm in the car.
There we go. Okay.
But I love to just physically hold and turn the pages. I like the smell of the pages. Right. I love libraries. I love bookstores. But find things that keep you engaged, and don't ever get bored. It's that stuff that gets you. It's that juice in life, right? If you don't drink it, right, you're just kind of coasting. And it's such an experience to be on this planet. There's so many things you can get involved in. Don't think you can't. If you're interested over here and you go, well, nobody'd really want me involved. Why not? Just go do it. Jump into the things that excite you and have fun with it. And if it stops being exciting, go find something else. Be engaged.
No, trust me. Everything that you've talked, it's going to be on these SD cards, on these cameras. I'm going to be listening to them myself too.
Oh, thanks.
Because there's so much that I can implement as well. Because you have so much experience and you shared so much today. And I know for a fact that I have a lot of work to do as well. So I just want to say thank you for myself, our viewers. Love the conversation.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. So you're a really good interviewer. You know, the big thing about it is being able to listen well and figure out what to pick up on that somebody else says, and you do that well.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I hope that we have another episode soon.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Right?
It'd be fun.
Wherever you want, we'll come there.
Sounds good. That sounds great.
Perfect. Well,
All right.
thank you so much for being on A Little Perspective.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Appreciate it.